So the Shedeur thing is like super interesting, right? I think the way that it was covered was very interesting. A lot of the time I was working, and then on Saturday I was just kind of chilling watching it. But Friday night I was working, but as I was calling the softball game, I was certainly staying like, yeah, okay, I'm going to find out that he's going to get drafted in the second round. Like, I'm waiting, like, nothing. Like, he was I thought maybe the Raiders might take him. No. Obviously, Cleveland passed on him twice. And then the free fall just started. And when you started to identify with, okay, and when I say you, like me and probably all of us, he's not going to get taken like in the second round or the third round. And then it was like, okay, at that point I was like, I really went through a moment where I was like, he's going to get drafted, right? And that's not because I thought like there was any kind of collusion or chicanery behind the scenes, but I did believe that, okay, I guess our assessment of him was wrong. And when I say our, I mean like truthfully, being honest, I'm an extension of the great ones. And what I mean by that is I am not a great one, but I will, right, like talk to McShay and listen to what he has to say. I listen to Mel Kiper. If there's ever a coach who goes on the record about the breakdown of an athlete, like I take that in. That's who I listen to. That's why I say I'm an extension. I'm not going to pretend like I watch a lot of film or I have this amazing eye for quarterbacks. I've always found that sort of interesting. Like, I don't know, I've never been able to accept like when Colin Cowherd's like, oh, he's got a great release. Or I like, he releases the ball just at the perfect point. And he may be watching film. He may have that like experience and stuff, but like, that's not for me to say. And to be fair, we talked about it a couple weeks ago right here with McShay and Mensch. Like I did that for a little bit with McShay and Mensch, but I'm not. And I call games, but I just don't think like sometimes I'll see a guy I'm like he's awesome, but I leave it to those guys. Those guys all had him at the top of the draft. Scotty, do you remember anybody? And this is kind of putting you on the spot. Off the top of your head, was anybody while Shedeur was falling? Any draft gurus were like, oh, I told you he was going to – no, there wasn't one person, right? Everybody had him. Yeah.
Yeah, I think even cynics thought he was like a late first, second-round pick.
Yeah.
Like, I don't remember anybody saying he's a fifth-round pick. I don't remember anybody saying he's worse than Tyler Shuck and Dylan Gabriel.
No, so we all got it wrong, right? In one way or another. We all got it wrong. And – when he starts to drop, you start to see like this is when I started to think, okay, I can identify with why he's fallen. And I was able to identify with it because I thought to myself, this is a situation where it's not like as radioactive. It's interesting because I don't want anybody to get confused here about what I mean. It's not like Colin Kaepernick in a sense where like the racial side to it. But it is the Colin Kaepernick, and it is like the Tim Tebow thing when Tim Tebow commanded so much media attention wherever he went. Colin Kaepernick, a lot of coaches, at least the ones that went on the record, you could say there's all kinds of other stuff going on there. But like to have him in camp as a backup, it's like, who needs the trouble?
Yeah, no, I think the Tebow comp here is much better than others I've heard because I've heard people try to say character issues.
With Shedeur, there's no character issues.
That's just garbage. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. There aren't any character issues.
Yeah, character issues to me implies you're doing something off the field that's immoral or sketchy, illegal.
Yeah.
Like, there's none of that with him. Like, I think he's a good person, you know, like, seriously. Now, the stories about, like, walking into an interview with his entourage and not being prepared and wearing so much cologne that they've got to walk out of the room and refusing to meet with certain teams, like, that's a bad look. That's unwise is probably how I would say that.
Yeah.
But it's not a character flaw. So, like, I do struggle with, Pete, how does a guy like Johnny Manziel, who everyone knew didn't watch film and was a drunk, let alone other things that now we know were going on in the background of his life, right? And I'm thankful he's sober and seems to have gotten well. But, like, he still went in round one. Yeah. So don't talk to me about character issues dropping fifth. Like, that's crazy to me.
Well,
and it's crazy to me that New Orleans would think Tyler Shuck, and Pittsburgh would think Will Howard are going to be better NFL quarterbacks than Shedeur. Because regardless of how you think about the off-the-field stuff, at the end of the day, if you're an NFL team, your job is to take...
Wasn't Shedeur picked before Will Howard? He was.
Yes, but Pittsburgh did not pick a quarterback until Will Howard.
Okay.
And Pittsburgh was a team that folks thought would take it. That's all I'm saying. I'm just saying they needed a quarterback. Mm-hmm. And I would think, especially once you got to round 3, that Pittsburgh would go, it's round 3. Yeah. Shedeur is clearly a borderline starting, at worst, a borderline starter in the NFL. At best, maybe a good starter in the NFL. And they chose not to take him. They chose to take Will Howard.
Yeah.
So that's I don't. It is bizarre.
Okay, so I have a comparison, right? And I gleaned this year doing calling basketball. And there was a time when I don't exactly want to say what team, but there was a team I was covering this year. I'd done a couple of their games, and they had a guy on their team that was like a social media star, but it really wasn't like panning out. So far, wasn't really playing much.
So he wanted to be an influencer, but wasn't.
Well, he kind of is, but just wasn't he's not playing. You have an influencer on your team who's not commanding any minutes.
Okay.
And so it's kind of weird because you go on trips and when you land in a city, there's other people there that kind of work for this guy that are capturing video and whatever. It's just kind of a weird thing. And again, is the end justifying the means? The weird vibe around the team, this person's paying 5-6 minutes a night, 10 minutes, maybe this was a bad idea, right? That's the vibe you got from maybe around the program. Well, the same thing now with Shedeur Sanders. Okay, we don't want him to start right now, right? But we do have,
what's crazy is now that he's with the Browns, he might start right away.
Well, he might, and I want to get to that in a second. But I think when you have him in your camp, if he's not fighting for the job, or you don't think he's got the elite level talent, right, that certain people had, obviously, folks that we trusted, had him locked in going top 5 or top 15 or first round at one time or another. If you don't think he's that guy, then as a backup, it's just not worth the trouble.
Right.
And I believe that's what happened. And I think it's not they're worried he's going to get arrested or anything like that, or they think he's a bad guy.
Right.
I really believe, and it's not his fault per se. Yeah, sure, your own social media team and all that stuff.
It's a lot his fault.
Sure. Well, maybe you could tone it down. But either way, wherever he goes now, that's going to be a huge story. Cleveland. Right. I mean, so that'll be a big story. Hopefully it won't be as big, and it is Cleveland, but it's not like the Jets took him, where at every practice there'd be 100 media members.
By the way, Jets another
day.
team that I think should have taken him.
Yeah, sure, but so hopefully Cleveland and the situation where it is being Midwestern and a little bit softer from as far as having a real sharp tongue media wise. Okay, maybe that's a good fit for him, but my hope for him is that he tones down some of that stuff on his end, because I don't think that creates an environment where he can be. I just think anything that doesn't get in the way, right? Because your teammates might say. Because I heard this morning on First Take. Of course, I was watching it as I was leaving, about an hour ago. Who's the dude on there from the lineman from the? He went to Boston College. Was a center for the Patriots. Come on, what's his name? He's on First Take. He played for the Patriots. Anyways, I'll figure out who he is.
I know all the defensive players from the Patriots who've been on that show.
Well, who are they?
Rodney Harrison or Teddy Bruschi's
This
been
is
on there
good for you because you don't watch First Take, so good for you.
I don't.
So anyways, they said, hey, you were a top 2. This guy's a first-round pick. I can't believe I forget who it is. So you're a first-round pick. What would you be like? How would you approach Shedeur? And he's like, I'll be watching everything he does, how he walks into the locker room, how he handles himself, who does he eat with, how does he eat, everything. There's going to be a lot of attention in that locker room on him, which I don't think I think he'll be fine with that. But I think that what coaches and stuff don't love is all the media attention.
Well, and that's why I thought right up front your Tebow comparison was apt.
Yeah.
Tim Tebow, I think. And this is not everybody's opinion. I think Tim Tebow was plenty good.
Damian Woody,
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
I think Tim Tebow was plenty good enough to be a backup longer in the NFL than he was, but he was a media circus everywhere went, and he's like A++ character guy, right? Like off the field, right? But that you kind of want your backup quarterback to be anonymous in some ways.
Totally.
That's why Case Keenum is still in the NFL.
Yeah.
That's why Chase Daniel played for so long in the
because
NFL.
the backup quarterback, if stuff starts to go sideways, is always the most popular guy in the city.
Right.
And so
you don't want him running his mouth.
No, and you don't. Yeah, you almost don't want him to be that attractive.
So I think with Shedeur, to your point about walking, eating, all this, if this didn't humble him pretty significantly, and I'm not saying he's got to be not himself, but if this didn't take him down a peg, you got to walk into a locker room and command men, and those NFL veterans don't put up with the extra stuff. No. They won't. They won't. He will lose that locker room so quickly if he walks in with any kind of entitlement.
Yeah.
That's why I know we might get to it in a minute, but I really appreciated what Reese Davis said about the situation of like, nobody thought these were going to be the cards, but these are the cards. Now, how do you play them?
How do you play them?
You have to just respond.
Yeah.
You know.
So one thing I do want to on what you're saying, and then we'll get into the coverage and your boy Mel Kiper.
My boy.
So the Browns, they got 5 quarterbacks. That's the first thing. I mean, I remember right away. I was like, when I saw he got drafted, I was like, let me look up for see who we got here, and I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, that's right. I forgot they drafted Dylan Gabriel. Now you have Watson in the mix, but I keep hearing more and more he'll be cut. We'll find out, right?
It's a lot of money.
Yeah. So he's going to have a chance to compete and could end up starting this year. And a good thing at some point, really. And
I think what's toxic is because it's the Cleveland Browns, there's like 3 of them that will probably start this year.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. This is a different, because you and I were on Saturday. We saw Bear the Truth. Christy came out. It was great. Scotty and I, we were all hanging. We had a blast. But I went over to Southern Roots for a little while. But so we were talking about, and Scotty and I were very upfront, and so was Bear the Truth. Was like, going to Cleveland, that's just like you have trauma almost, like because of all they've had so many. I mean, the number, I don't know, 40 different starting quarterbacks.
You've seen that guy with the jacket that has all the names on it, right?
Yeah, with all the quarterbacks. Yeah, but it's a different environment there. Like, I knew this. Kevin Stefanski, obviously the head coach. Bill Musgrave, the quarterback's coach. There's a connection with Dion there too, and then Tommy Reese, their OC, who's one of like the hottest young OC, all quarterback guys.
Yeah.
Right. And Musgrave played with Dion in San Francisco when they won the Super Bowl, so they're kind of tight. So maybe there's a good vibe deal there. But there's a lot for Shedeur to learn now. Not only about what's happened in the past, but he's going to be learning from some of the best quarterback whisperers out there in Cleveland. So the opportunity is all there for him. My like sticker shock, like we mentioned on Saturday, has kind of been relieved, right? Like, oh, the Browns, they suck. So many quarterbacks. I think of Chris Palmer drafting Tim Couch in that 1999 year and being like, oh my God, it was so bad, So we'll see.
I almost wish for him, once he fell past the second round, I was like, he needs to be a backup. I wish a good franchise had taken him. There's part of me that wishes the Cowboys had done it because that's my team, and he clearly wouldn't be the starter. But that's like why any strong franchise, man, like San Francisco, could he go back at Brock Purdy?
That's why he didn't get drafted there. Because at that point,
I know.
Is it worth the trouble?
I know. But I think that would have been the best thing for him.
Are we going to bring in Shedeur Sanders to play behind what's his face? The starter for San Francisco. Brock Purdy, yeah.
Do you know who they did draft?
Who?
Curtis Rourke from Indiana.
Oh, yeah, you told me that, yeah.
He'll be their starter by next year.
Yeah, but they don't need him, like, playing behind Brock Purdy, right?
No, I know. I'm just saying, I think that would have been the best thing for Shedeur.
Yeah.
Would be to play behind a vet in a good organization.
Yeah.
Now he's in an organization where one of two things is going to happen. He's either going to be the starter way too quickly for the Browns, and I'm scared he's going to struggle.
Yeah.
Maybe he proves us all wrong, but we've been saying that about quarterbacks in Cleveland for 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
Or he's going to be behind Kenny Pickett,
Yeah.
God forbid Dylan Gabriel outplays him in camp. Can you imagine the stories if Shedeur's behind Dylan Gabriel on the depth chart? Like, I just think it's going to be bad. Like, no matter how it goes,
That's an interesting canvas there you're working with, because that is a little scary, like to think that the regular season would start and a Shedeur on the practice squad.
Right. Yeah. Like, let's say they go into week 1. This is not unfeasible, by the way. Let's say they start Joe Flacco because that's safe. They keep Kenny Pickett because I said in a tweet, you've got 2 vets who've proven something in the NFL and 2 rookies and Kenny Pickett, which means they're going to keep Kenny Pickett because it's the Cleveland Browns. And let's say their third quarterback's Dylan Gabriel.
Yeah.
Can you, you talk about circus. Can you imagine what Shedeur Sanders is going to say to the media?
He won't say anything.
Yes, he will.
No, he won't. I believe he's going to. This is where Deion's smarts play in. And if they learned anything from this past weekend, it's kind of like, all right, maybe some of it's a little much. I'm telling you, because if it wasn't so much, I think Shedeur would have gotten drafted higher. Like, there is a little bit. Let me ask you, do you think, when something goes wrong, you really do, if you're going to be a winner in life, or at least like when I'm striving to be a winner, which is all the time, but you have to, when something bad happens, you have to take a look and say, what did I do to create this situation? You have to do that. Otherwise, you're never going to learn.
Totally.
And you're not going to improve. What could Deion, or not Deion, sorry, what could Shedeur learn from? I mean, was it all out of his control, or was there stuff that he controlled that he screwed up?
I think the more reports come out, it's evident it was a lot of his control.
Yeah.
That I said this to you a couple weeks ago. If my process of you said you don't do this, I do this. I try to evaluate quarterbacks in college, and my process is it's 2 thoughts. It's very simple. Do you have off the charts gifts that others don't have, Patrick Mahomes, or did you win a lot in college? Because to me, if you didn't win and you're not off the charts, I don't think you're suddenly going to start winning in the NFL.
Yeah.
I think that's where teams mess up. They think, oh, this guy's got a ceiling, but he won 6 games a year in college. So with Shedeur, he does not have off the charts athleticism or skills.
Yeah.
He doesn't. He's above average in most categories. And he lost. I mean, Colorado should have won the Big 12. There's some dude would say Colorado losing 3-4 games is actually an indictment, especially when Travis Hunter's on both sides of the ball. So I think once he walked into those interviews and conducted himself the way he did, refused to meet with certain teams, he wasn't a winner in college, overachieving winner.
Well, look, sacked 94 times, missed 1 game.
You're right. I know. I think he's a great college player, but he's not. He didn't have qualities that were going to get him drafted over all the crap we're hearing about. Anyway. Yes, it's within his control was my point.